Don't just launch and be like, woo, this is great. Everything's great. We got confetti and we're sparkling and it's just fantastic. But also, I'm on a week to week trying to figure out what in the world I'm doing with this show. We don't want that. We want you to be planned out and at least know what you're going to be talking about over the next few weeks, especially after that launch, because there is going to be that launch high and then that launch lull. Plan for that and prepare for that. When you are creating your content, we don't want you to just fly by the seat of your pants. We want you to be strategic and intentional. Welcome to another episode of Listeners to Leads, where I'm helping podcasters launch and maintain a lead generating show. I'm your host, Alicia Galati, the CEO and head podcast strategist behind Galati Media, a full-service podcast management company. On this show, you'll hear my guests and I discuss everything it takes to launch a successful podcast and keep it running. If you're ready to get leads, land speaking gigs, and create deeper connections with your audience through your podcast, then this is the show for you. Today, we are going to go over how to create a podcast launch plan. This is going to be broken up into about 8 weeks, but I want you to use this as kind of a framework for you to strategically launch your podcast. I don't want you to rush it or get frustrated or fall off the wagon because you decided that you were going to go super quick. That's not what I want for you. I want you to be intentional about how you launch your show. Once I break this up by weeks and what each of those weeks really looks like and the things that you're going to get done during those weeks, we're going to go through my podcast launch checklist. You can get this by checking out the show notes or going to my website. Under resources, I have a podcast launch training. It is free. You can access that checklist in that training. All right, so let's start breaking down each of these weeks. You've got about 8 weeks for your launch planned out. In those first 2 weeks, you're going to take time to do that market research, which we talked about last week, which is why I did that episode first, because I know how important that is. And I don't want you to get caught up in just running and rushing forward. I want you to be intentional, be strategic. Let's put some thought into this and make the most of your show. Take about 2 weeks to do some market research, do that research coming up with about 10 episodes for your show. The reason I say 10 and not the 3 plus the trailer that I usually tell people to launch with is because I want to make sure that you have 10 episodes at least already planned out so that you aren't one of those people who end up stopping podcasting because you didn't have enough content or you didn't have enough ideas to get past that 7 mark, which is usually where people stop. So I don't want that to be you. I want you to make the most of this and plan out those first 10 episodes. If you're having a hard time with this content part of coming up with episodes, the next episode that is going to go live on this show will be all about planning out the first 10 to 15 episodes of your show. So make sure you go listen to that after this, and that should help you at least with that phase. But let's just plan out your launch first. We're just planning. We're not taking action just yet, just coming up with a strategy, coming up with an idea. But if you need help with content and you're looking at past episodes that we do have live right this second, you can check out episode 3, which is Streamline Your Podcast Content Creation Process. Episode 7, which is 5 strategies to never run out of podcast content. And episode 21, which is how to organize and plan your podcast content. We'll have each of those linked in the show notes as well. That's going to help you at least get started and ensure that you are taking time and effort when you are creating your content. We don't want you to just fly by the seat of your pants. We want you to be strategic and intentional. And I know I keep saying those 2 words, but I feel like a lot of people don't approach podcasting that way, and that just drives me nuts. I really want you to make money from your podcast. I want you to get listeners, and I want you to get leads, and I want you to make money, and I want your businesses to grow. Those are some episodes you can check out. Let's keep moving forward. You've got your 2 weeks for market research and coming up with your initial 10 episodes. The next 2 weeks, so now you're at 6 weeks out from launch, you're going to start working on coming up with a guest list, reaching out to those guests. You're going to Start recording your trailer, your intro, your outro. If you have an ad, you're going to pick some music, those kinds of things. So it's going to be more back-end stuff that you're going to start recording. Now, at this point, at the about 6 to 5 weeks from your launch, you've already got your concept, you've got your title, and you've got your cover art. Those 3 things are all that you need in order to start promoting your show. So at this point, 5 weeks out, I want you to start talking about your show. No, you don't have to do a social media countdown. I don't recommend doing that until about a month out. But at this point, you can still at least start talking about it, telling friends and family, letting them know, getting the word out there that you have this really incredible thing coming. I personally don't recommend keeping it a secret or being hush hush or, oh, something's coming. No, just don't. Tell people what's coming. Get them excited with you. That's how you're going to have raving fans when you launch your podcast, which is obviously what we want. We want to build that momentum and get people excited. So we've got about 5 weeks at this point until your launch. You're going to start pitching people to be on your show. You're going to start recording episodes, having these conversations, or recording those solo episodes. I also would love for you at this point to start creating some graphic templates, start working on your website, start working on these back-end things that you don't really want to wait to the last minute to get done. Start getting those editings done as well. So we do not take partial launches. That's not something that I feel comfortable doing. We've done it in the past and we just haven't seen the same results with clients who have gone full service with us for their launches. So that is not something I can help you with. Sorry, but I do have recommendations and people that I can always refer you to. So if you are looking for editing only support for your launch, send me a DM and I'm always happy to connect you with some of my friends. So start getting the editing done. Start tailoring your show, how you want it to sound, how you want to show up, how you want it to be working for you, because obviously we want your show to work for you. And then at this point, you're about 4 weeks out from your launch. So now that you're at 4 weeks, you're going to keep recording, keep editing, keep working on that kind of stuff. But now you're going to add on that social media aspect and that promotional aspect. I want you to start pulling in your ride or dies, your biz besties, your friends, your communities, people who are always going to support you no matter what. This is not necessarily going to be your Facebook group or your email list or those people. This is more inner circle type people, right? These are going to be maybe your one-on-one clients. These are going to be people who are relatives, like I said, biz besties, friends. These people are going to end up being your launch team. Start reaching out to them at this point. You're at 4 weeks. Let them know that you have this thing coming. This is what it is. This is what it's about. And ask them if they would like to be part of your launch team. Let them know that it's maybe going to include them listening to the episode or sharing any feedback or maybe leaving a review if they have the ability to do so. With all that in mind, these people are going to get an email once your trailer goes live. So just keep that in your mind, but you're going to want to at least start getting that information and getting those people together. Now you're at 3 weeks out. Now you want to make sure that you have your trailer ready. You've got everything ready. You've started putting the information into your podcast host, getting all that back end information in. You're still promoting your show. You're still talking about your show. And at this point, you're probably working on the episodes that are going to go live after you launch. Don't just launch and be like, woo, this is great. Everything's great. We got confetti and we're sparkling and it's just fantastic. But also, I'm on a week to week trying to figure out what in the world I'm doing with this show. We don't want that. We want you to be planned out and at least know what you're going to be talking about over the next few weeks, especially after that launch, because there is going to be that launch high and then that launch lull. Plan for that and prepare for that. At 2 weeks out, you're then going to submit your trailer for all of the major and minor podcast listening apps. Most of the time, you should be able to get approved by Apple Podcasts pretty quickly. They used to be about 2 to 3 days. Sometimes it would take up to 2 weeks. So we want to make sure that you are ready to go, that there's not going to be any issues with your show. and that you'll be able to show up for your audience on launch day. We don't want you to show up on launch day and say, oh, by the way, nothing is live. That's not what we want. We want people there, excited, ready to go. So 2 weeks out, you're going to submit your trailer only for approval by all the major and minor podcast listening apps. Some of them will take up to 2 weeks. So that's why I say use this 2-week timeline. About a week from launch, you're going to keep promoting, you're going to be excited and keep talking about it, but you're also going to be sending your launch team an email or a message or a DM or whatever, letting them know that the trailer is live. At this point, your trailer should be live on the 2 platforms that at the time of this recording allow reviews, which is Apple Podcasts and Podcast Addict for those who are Android users. Ask them to leave reviews and leave ratings and give any feedback to you directly, even if it means that they listen on Spotify and they send you a DM, and then you can screenshot it. That's still really great and really valuable. Even though it might not show up on those platforms, it's still okay, and it's still something that you can use in your marketing. Once they've left reviews, it usually will take a few days for those reviews to be approved. So just keep that in mind. They might say, hey, I left it and it's not showing up. If they did it correctly, it still will take a few days to show up for you. Now you are at your launch. So 8 weeks has gone by. It is launch day. You are excited. You are ready. Send another email to your launch team or send another DM or a message letting them know that the episodes are live and to please share where and if they can. So this is going to get their audiences involved and allowing them to let other people know that your episode and your podcast is now live and how excited you are. Make sure that you do a Facebook Live, an Instagram Live, a LinkedIn Live, whatever. Do a live video, talk about your show, talk about how excited you are, blast on it all over your socials, keep talking about it. But then I don't want you to stop talking about it for the week after you launch. So this is 1 week post-launch, then you can kind of ease back. But I still recommend having at least one post every day that's talking about your new show. And the beauty of this is that you already have your trailer and 3 episodes, because we recommend launching with 4 total. So your trailer plus 3 episodes that you can kind of split up the content. So you're not just like, hey, my podcast, hey, my podcast, hey, my podcast. As great as that is, it's not really going to get you the traction you need. But if you're able to say, hey, episode 1, I talk about this. Episode 2, I have this guest on and we're talking about this topic and I'm so excited. And then episode 3, I have this topic. Spacing it out for each day is going to help you get more traction, get people excited because it's different content. If you just say my podcast, yay, look at it, then you're more likely to have people fall off or they're like, well, what does that mean for me? This is especially relevant if your podcast episode is titled something with a nuanced type of name, or maybe you named it The Alicia Galati Show, or, something that doesn't clearly tell the audience what it's about. They might think, well, I don't want to listen to that. I don't know what it's about. Make sure you let them know, get them excited with you. So those are your 8 plus the 1 week post-launch, 8 weeks in pre-launch leading up to your podcast, and then we talk that week after. Now let's go into that podcast launch checklist. There are 6 different sections in this checklist. The first one is going to be your concept, which is what we talked about. This is going to be in that first 2 weeks of your podcast launch plan. First thing you're going to do is clarify your goals, message, and audience. That's that market research. You're going to write your podcast description, which is also part of your market research. So we've already done all of this stuff and we know exactly the direction that we're headed in. Next, you're going to choose your show format. Is it going to be a solo? Is it going to be with interviews? Or is it going to be a hybrid? So a mix of solos and interviews. Next, you're going to choose a host. Obviously, we love Buzzsprout. We talk about them constantly on this show. So you can always check them out. Love them. You're going to name your podcast, and then you're going to create some podcast cover art, and then select 3 to 5 subtopics, which these are going to be your content buckets. We talk about them on pretty much every episode. So you can always go back to those content episodes that we referred to in the show notes and referred to earlier in this episode to find out more about those subtopics and those content buckets. The next part is to look up your microphone and your gear. We didn't mention this one so much in the launch breakdown because I don't really feel that it is part of the launch plan. Now, yes, it is something that you need for your podcast launch. So I have it in the checklist just as like a, hey, make sure you don't forget this stuff. So you're going to get your microphone, your pop filter, and your headphones. You're going to download a recording tool. This could be Audacity or GarageBand. Those are 2 free tools that you can use to record your episodes. If you are going to have interviews virtually, you can set up accounts with Zencastr, Zoom, or Riverside FM. There are a ton of different platforms out there, but those are some of the ones that we've used and kind of like. Last, you're going to test and practice using that new equipment. Make sure you feel comfortable with it. Make sure that you're testing out to make sure that the audio is recording, you know where that information is, and make sure that you feel super comfortable and confident with it. The next phase is the planning phase. Here you're going to start brainstorming 10 or more podcast episode ideas, which we talked about. You're going to choose your first 5 podcast ideas. This is going to be your cornerstone content. The reason I say do this is because it kind of breaks down those very basic concepts that maybe you're going to be talking about later in your show. So if you have your main content buckets, these are the things that you're talking about, these are your subtopics, then have very basic content in the beginning without going too much into depth or getting into the nitty-gritty of things. You can always do that in later episodes, but you want to make sure that those first episodes, since there are people who are going to start your show at the very beginning. It does not matter how many episodes you are in. There's going to be still a lot of people that are going to start at that first episode. So make sure that they have content that is going to help in building that foundation and that information that they're going to need for future episodes. You're going to pitch some guests for your interviews. You're going to script or outline your first episode content, get that kind of going. And then make sure you script and record your intro, your outro, and any ads that you plan on having. And then you've made it. Record your first episode, which is going to be your trailer. Now we're going to go into the section that is called episode level planning. If you're having trouble planning out your podcast content, then I want to make sure, as I said before, that you check out those episodes where we're talking specifically about podcast content. Episode 21 has the how to organize and plan your podcast content. That's going to help you in ensuring that as you plan out these episodes, you don't need to worry about trying to figure out what you're going to talk about next. So you're going to pick out your theme, you're going to edit the episode, export the audio, all that fun stuff. We also talked about this in our podcast workflow. There's also a podcast workflow training that you can check out on my website that has the checklist for that side as well. I recommend having both because it's going to show you, all right, this is the launch, great, but then on an episode level, here's all the different things that you need to get done during that. And then you're going to upload that to your hosting platform along with your show notes and all the information, and then submit it to these podcast listening apps, as we said. Section 5 is creating your podcast graphics, which we've already done, but this is just like a checklist of making sure you get all this stuff done. Create your website or landing page. Make sure you're using a search engine optimized title for your show, and then make sure that you submit that to all of those major and minor podcast listening apps. On your launch, this is the last section, you're going to publish your trailer and 3 episodes to go live on launch day. Make sure you email your list, you talk about it on social media, have a dance party, and then start working on the next episode. So those are the main things that you're going to want to make sure that you have on your checklist, that you are checking off, that you're doing. If you're looking for support, send me a DM and I'll let you know if we do have a spot available for you that month to get launched in 2 months. We do the market research for you. We do all that back end stuff. Literally all you have to do is show up to meetings, pick the episode topics, and then record. That's all you have to do. So we do the rest. We do the uploading, the graphics, the website, all of that fun stuff. I love it. Our clients love it. It's a great service, and we're able to get our clients some really incredible launch results using our templates and using everything that we have. So be sure to check out the podcast launch checklist. If you do want to DIY your podcast launch, yay, more power to you. Let me know when you launch. I love shouting out people who are in our sphere or in our circle who are launching. So make sure you do that. If you have any questions on the content that we talked about during this episode, be sure to send me a DM on Instagram. I'm always happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Listeners to Leads. If you found something in this episode valuable, I would really appreciate it if you shared it with a friend who you know would also get value from it. Want to send me a message? My favorite place to hang out is Instagram. You can find me at alicia.galati. Let me know what your favorite takeaway was from the episode. And don't forget, turning those listeners into leads is actually easy.